If a swan fell from the sky and into your arms, weak and injured, running from an eagle, what would you do with the swan? Hey guys, I'm Bryce from Chimera House, and this is Myth House, the series where I tell you a conglomeration of all the Greek myths of old and how all the stories and tellings of the stories interconnect. This story is called Meet the Spartans. You see, way before the swan, the story, like many Greek stories, starts with the gods. Or, technically, it's the lack of gods. Because this story starts with one of the few autochthones, Lelyx. See, Lelyx was not born from god nor woman. But Lelyx came about when he shoved his mighty hand through the ground and pulled his fully grown, dirty body from the earth's innards. He picked himself up, dusted himself off, and looked up to be face to face with a nymph of the lake named Cleocaria. Did you just... Cleocaria started. Come out of the ground? Yeah, Lelyx said. Cleocaria paused. Hot. Lelyx and Cleocarian married and had sons named Miles and Polycarian. With their powerful abilities, Lelyx and Cleocaria became the first king and queen of Laconia. When Lelyx's body decided to return to the earth he was birthed, there was actually very little dispute between the brothers who would take over as king. King Miles took his spot as the leader of Laconia, and Polycarian was actually very chill about it. Well, Polycarian's wife, Mezine, wasn't so chill about that. She wasn't mad that Miles was king, she was frustrated because she was going to be the wife of an anonymous man. You see, Mezine was the daughter of King Tropius of Argos. She married Polycarian the prince, and now Polycarian was still a prince.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But he wasn't going to become king of Laconia, because Miles already had a son, and Polycarian was very okay with his brother's family being the royalty. So she gathered armed forces from both Argos and Laconia and invaded territory to make their own kingdom. The newly conquered kingdom, now named Messenia, had been established. Lelyx's other son, Miles, had become king of Laconia. He did many great things as king, many adventures, like, what do I have written down? He was the first mortal to invent a mill and ground corn. Miles had a son named Eurotas. No clue who the mother was, so unimportant that they didn't even name her. Eurotas became king when King Miles passed, and he had so many great achievements, like so many. He had two daughters named Sparta and Tessia. Wow, this sucks now. You know what? Why don't we shoot some interesting into the story by adding some god blood, huh? Zeus had fallen in love again. This time, it was one of Artemis's companion nymphs, Teget. Teget then gave birth to Lacedaemon. Lacedaemon went on to marry Eurytus' daughter Sparta. When Eurytus died because he had no male heirs, Lacedaemon inherited the kingdom and renamed it after his wife Sparta. Lacedaemon was now king of Sparta. And he went on to do... f***ing nothing? What? After Lelyx, every sibling was kind to each other and were defensive leaders and protective of their land and didn't want to expand? For how many rulers? Starting after Lacedaemon, how many rulers before some mythical shit started happening? 5? A total of 8 straight rulers from Greek myth did f*** all? None f***ed off any gods. None expanded Sparta's borders. None did anything of note. The f***? You know what? Whatever. What do we got in the seat of the story now? The sons of Obalus, former king of Sparta, I don't know who his fucking parents were, Tyndarus, Hippocoon, and Icarius. When Obalus passed, the kingdom fell to his eldest son, Tyndareus. King Tyndareus didn't last as king very long. Hippocoon and his sons overthrew Tyndareus, exiling him and their brother Icarius from Sparta. After ruling for some years, the great hero Hercules came to Spartan court, covered in blood. Hippocoon, on the throne, looked at the bloody warrior confused. Hercules knelt before the throne. "King of Sparta," he said, "I have come before you after completing the horrendous task of killing the closest person in the world to me, Iphitus. I ask for your permission to rest and cleanse in your kingdom." "Look, I don't care who your father is," Hippocoon said. "You can't just waltz your way into my court and start asking for things." Hercules stood back up and stared at Hippocoon for a bit, before stepping forward and stabbing him through the chest. When Hercules was walking out of the court, he was approached by his brother, Iphicles, who said, Hark! Hippocoon's sons just attacked Onius because they said he attacked their dog. But he was just defending himself from the dog. Hercules stared over at the sons, and his sword slowly raised up. The fight between the sons and Hercules' crew was a bloody one. All the sons, as well as the 22 of Hercules' men, died in the fight, including Hercules' brother, Iphicles. After Hippocoon's death, Tyndareus returned to Sparta and regained the title of king. Icarius didn't return to Sparta. Instead, Icarius stayed in Arcania where he and Tyndareus had been staying. Icarius had fallen in love. Icarius had fallen in love and was raising some children. We'll get back to Icarius and his kids later. King Tyndareus had begun his second reign of Sparta. And wait, Zeus had fallen in love again. This time, it's a troublesome one. It's Leda, Tyndareus' wife. Zeus looked deep into Leda's subconscious and figured out what she is uncontrollably into and transformed into that. So, the question arises again. If an injured swan falls into your arms while running away from an eagle, what would you do? Would you protect the swan? Would you take it to safety? Somewhere the two of you, you and the swan, can be alone? Yeah, that's right. Let a Zeus as a swan. Look, I'm not one to ick someone's young, but bestiality isn't okay. That's a bird. Yeah, the swan fell into your arms, so you protect it from an eagle. Yeah, that's not what he meant by when I say falling in love with someone. And look at you now. You're pregnant from a swan. Yeah, it was a god after all, but you didn't know it was God when it happened. So, Leda laid 2 eggs. Yup, a human woman laid eggs because she f***ed a swan. When the eggs hatched, each egg produced 2 children. One egg produced Castor and Pollux, while the other egg produced Helen and Clemenstra. So they weren't technically Tyndareus' kids, but Tyndareus had no other children otherwise. That's important. One day, when his children were preteens, Tyndareus received a letter in the mail from a nearby king Atreus, saying that he was sending his sons for refuge in Sparta while he dealt with his villainous brother Theseus. When Tyndareus looked up from the letter, 2 boys stood in front of him. Those boys were Menalaus and Agamemnon. If you want to hear their story up to this moment in the story, check out the video up in the corner now. While his children, the Messian boys, were growing up, life went on. That was until Tyndareus made a teeny tiny mistake. A mistake so small at the moment, but the repercussions of this mistake will be carried out for many more years than Tyndareus could ever imagine. Tyndareus, like he always had, was making his sacrifices to the gods. But he forgot he left his hot pockets in the microwave. So he had to do the sacrifices quickly. And when you try to hurry things, sometimes things get forgotten. Tyndareus made the teeniest of tiny of errors, and he sacrificed to all the gods, but one. In his defense again, there are a lot of gods to remember. He made sacrifices to Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Apollo, Ares, Artemis, Athena, Demeter, Dionysus, Hephaestus, Hera, Hermes, Hestia, and Persephone. He forgot to sacrifice to Aphrodite. Aphrodite was unhappy with this. Thinking it through, she could punish Tyndareus now. Or Aphrodite got a smile on her face, a wicked smile that stretched across her face to unsettling lengths. Aphrodite, staying within her godly domains, cursed his daughters, Helen and Clemenstra. She cursed them to twice and thrice wed, to be deserters of their husbands. Then Aphrodite lay in wait for the day to help push her curse along. Meanwhile, life continued for the Spartan king, his egg children, and his 2 wards. When the children came of age, Agamemnon approached Tyndareus and asked for Clementra's hand in marriage. Tyndareus had no problem with this and married them. The other daughter was a bit more difficult. Helen was considered one of the most beautiful women in the world. When it was time for her to marry, many Greek kings and princes came to seek her hand in marriage. Among the suitors were some people of note: Odysseus, Ajax the Great, Daddy Diomedes, Idomeneus, and one of Tyndareus' wards, Menelaus. All suitors, except Odysseus, brought many expensive gifts for Helen. Odysseus didn't, because he thought presenting himself would be enough, because he's one of the biggest chads in Greek mythology. And, at the beginning of the wooing, Menelaus didn't come in person. but he had his brother Agamemnon representing him. Tyndareus didn't want any of the gifts, but he didn't want to send away any of the suitors in fear of offending them, as they were all so powerful, and he kind of feared a majority of them. After all, Ajax the Great was a borderline giant, Daddy Diomedes was known for his godlike smarts, and as I said, Odysseus is a full-blown Chad. Odysseus saw Tyndareus' hesitation, so Odysseus proposed that, before the decision is made, all the suitors would swear a solemn oath to defend whoever Tyndareus chose, against whoever should quarrel with them. Pretty much, Odysseus had all the best Greek warriors make a pact to band together to defend Helen and her husband. And the craziest part is they all agreed. All of these kings and princes put their egos aside to recognize they were all pretty cool and didn't want to fight each other over Helen. Tyndareus' nervousness calmed after the pact was made, and he finally made his decision who's going to marry Helen. Menelaus. He chose Menelaus. Tyndareus' sons, Castor and Pollux, known together as the Dioscuri, were off being Argonauts, so whoever married Helen would most likely inherit Sparta. So Tyndareus chose someone he could trust, the ward he raised since he was a boy. Menelaus and Helen married. Odysseus, Ajax the Great, Daddy Diomedes, and all the other suitors made their oath like they said they would and returned back to their homes. Eventually, after a long reign, Tyndareus abdicated the throne, and Menelaus and Helen became the new king and queen of Sparta. As king of Sparta, Menelaus helped his brother Agamemnon take their father's kingdom that was stolen from him, establishing Agamemnon as a king of Mycenae, and putting their direct line back in charge of the kingdom. Menelaus and Helen had a single child together, Hermione. Menelaus had several illegitimate children with the slaves, named Nicostratus, Maegipeneths, and Plestians. Menelaus and Helen were happy together. Then one day, Menelaus received word that his maternal grandfather, Catreus, had passed. So Menelaus traveled to Crete for the funeral. I'll cover Catreus in a rope story one day, but for now, when he returned, he found Helen and her belongings gone. Well, most of her belongings. He found a love letter from someone named Paris, saying that he will meet with her in the morning and run away to Troy with him. His wife was whisked off, stolen by another, to Troy. The wife he had beaten out Greece's greatest warriors to win the hand of. The wife he had known since they were children. In anger, Menelaus went to his brother's court, charged in, and yelled, "They've taken her!" "Taken who?" Agamemnon said. "Who's taken her?" "My wife Helen! Troy has taken my wife!" Menelaus then invoked the oath of Tyndareus, that Odysseus had them all agree to do so many years ago. All of Greece's finest was going to get his wife back. So how did I do? Did I get any of the myth wrong? Let us know down in the comments below. Also comment any myths you want me to cover. I'm trying to focus on like the Greek myths for now. I think that we might venture off into some other cultures once I get through a vast majority of the Greek ones, but for now we're going to stick to the Greek ones. So let us know. Thanks for watching. Bye.